The battlefield was lost. The mission was doomed. And yet, Evelyn saw something no one else did. The plan had collapsed somewhere between the broken bridge and the burning convoy. Radios hissed with static, their last clear transmission a flat sentence no one wanted to hear. Abort if possible. But there was no possible left. Only smoke, ricochets, and a horizon clawed open by fire. Evelyn Stone slid behind a jagged slab of concrete, breath sharp, eyes scanning the ruined street. Hale and Ramirez crashed down beside her, mud and ash streaking their faces. Beyond the collapsed storefronts, hostile fire stitched the air into a tight net. The route home was gone. Their evac road had become a canyon of twisted steel. "Command says we're done," Hale panted, checking a half-empty magazine. "Says to scatter and exfil as you can." Ramirez shook his head. "Exfil to where? The bridge is dust." Evelyn didn't answer. She watched the smoke, how it dragged across the street, tugged by a wind that had shifted half a degree since sunset. She watched the orange tongues of flame licking along the toppled power lines, and the way heat shimmer warped the far end of the avenue. She listened to the rhythm of the gunfire, counted the gaps. The enemy owned the high windows. They owned the road, but they didn't own everything. Her gaze snagged on a rusted access hatch canted at the edge of the road, a storm drain outlet where the old city infrastructure poked through rubble. Most people saw a hole in the ground. Evelyn saw a map the way a river sees a valley, not as it is, but as it flows. "We're not done," she said quietly. Hale followed her eyes. "You want to crawl into that?" "I want to get us home," Evelyn said, "and I want our intel to mean something tomorrow morning." The intel, a hard drive sealed in a shock case under Ramirez's vest. Names, dates, and the kind of coordinates that change what gets hit and what gets spared. If they ditched it, people would die. If they stayed, they would. Gunfire chewed the asphalt. A window burst into glitter. Evelyn lifted, fired 2 controlled shots, then ducked as return fire buzzed overhead. "Cover me," she said. "I'll check the grate on that drain." Hale swore but nodded. Ramirez rolled to a better angle and snapped off a burst. Evelyn sprinted low, boots splashing through a runoff of black water. The hatch was warped but movable. She pried it open with her knife handle and peered into the dark. Cold air breathed up from the tunnel, sweet, wet, and old. She angled her flashlight once, quick and narrow. The channel sloped away from the kill zone, bending under the avenue toward the industrial district, and, if her memory of the map was right, a culvert near the rail yard. She jogged back. "It runs away from the street. Might take us under their line of fire." "Might," Hale echoed, skeptical. Evelyn's voice steadied. "The winds shifted. Smoke will channel along the avenue for another 10 minutes, maybe 15. That buys us a blind spot for the first stretch. In the drain, sound will carry. So we move slow, no metal on stone, rifles slung muzzle down. If we hit a grid, we cut it quiet. No lights unless I call it." She breathed once, let the picture settle. "It's the only way that doesn't get us killed in the first 30 seconds. Ramirez touched the shock case under his vest, as if to feel its heartbeat. "Lead the way, Stone." The tunnel swallowed them whole. Evelyn led, boots splashing in shallow runoff, the smell of damp stone and rust filling her lungs. Hale followed close behind, Ramirez last, cradling the hard drive under his vest as though it were a heartbeat he couldn't afford to lose. Above them, the war raged like thunder. Muffled blasts shook dust from the ceiling, echoing through the underground ribs of the city. Every sound made Hale twitch, his nerves fraying. "This place feels like a coffin," he whispered. Evelyn glanced back, her voice calm. Better a coffin that moves forward than a grave in the street. They pressed on, single file. The tunnel angled downward, the water level rising to their ankles. Pipes jutted from the walls, dripping with condensation. Somewhere ahead, the faint rush of current hinted at a larger channel. Evelyn paused, raising a fist. She listened. Faint metal clanging. Boots? No, too rhythmic. She cocked her head, tracing the pattern. A maintenance gate rattling in the airflow. She let out the breath she'd held. Still, her instincts prickled. In war, what sounds harmless often kills. They reached the first junction, a cross-section where 3 tunnels split like the prongs of a fork. Faded stencils marked the walls. A VN-2, IND-4B, RLY-6. Evelyn studied them quickly. "We're here," she murmured, pointing to IND-4B. "That bends toward the industrial district. If we're right, it feeds out near the rail yard. That's our exit." Hale frowned. "And if we're wrong?" "Then we improvise," Evelyn said, steady as stone. Ramirez chuckled darkly. "That's becoming your trademark." Before Evelyn could reply, a distant splash echoed behind them. The 3 froze. Evelyn turned, raising her pistol. Silence. Then another splash, closer this time. "They followed us," Hale whispered, panic tightening his voice. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. Or they were already down here. A beam of light flickered faintly down the tunnel behind them, flashlights cutting through the dark. Enemy voices echoed, low and guttural, bouncing off the walls. "Move!" Evelyn hissed. "Quiet and fast." They turned into IND-4B, boots sliding through the water. Evelyn kept her pace controlled, breathing steady, counting each step. The echoes behind them grew louder. The enemy was closing in. The tunnel bent left, narrowing until they had to duck under low arches of brick. Ramirez grunted as the shock case knocked against stone. Evelyn shot him a sharp look. Quiet. Up ahead, the tunnel widened into a chamber where the runoff split into twin channels. A rusted maintenance ladder rose against the wall, leading to a grate overhead. Evelyn tilted her head. A draft of fresh air brushed her face, tinged with oil and smoke. She pointed. "That grate goes up. Likely the rail sector. Could be our exit." Hale grimaced. "And if it's guarded?" Evelyn adjusted her rifle, eyes sharp. "Then we stop guarding our fear." They began to climb, Ramirez struggling under the case. Evelyn boosted him, her muscles straining but unyielding. Above, the grate rattled with each push. The enemy's voices grew louder in the tunnels behind, the beam of their flashlights now visible against the chamber wall. Evelyn turned back, pistol raised. Shadows danced in the water as figures closed in. Her pulse slowed, the way it always did before a fight. She fired. 1 shot, 2, and the echoes boomed like thunder. Shouts erupted. "Go!" she barked. "Up the ladder! Now!" Ramirez scrambled, Hale behind him. Evelyn held the base, firing into the dark, her rounds sparking against wet stone. The grate above screeched as Ramirez shoved it open. Cold night air rushed in, mixing with the stink of war. "Stone!" Hale shouted. "Climb!" Evelyn gave one last burst, forcing the enemy to duck, then swung onto the ladder. Her arms burned, her body aching, but she climbed, boots slipping on wet rungs. Hands reached down, hauling her up as a bullet snapped past her shoulder. She rolled onto the surface, gasping. They were in the rail yard. Steel tracks stretched into the night, freight cars looming like sleeping beasts. Smoke from the battlefield drifted overhead, lit orange by distant flames. The enemy's shouts still echoed from below, but they had escaped, for now. Evelyn pushed to her knees, scanning the dark expanse. "We're not safe yet," she muttered. "But this is our way out." The rail yard stretched wide and silent, a graveyard of steel. Freight cars loomed like shadows, their hulks lined across the tracks. The night air was colder here, heavy with the scent of oil and rust. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed, faint, but drawing closer. Evelyn crouched between two boxcars, signaling Hale and Ramirez to stay low. "Eyes up," she whispered. "They'll be looking for movement." Hale scanned the horizon, jaw tight. "Feels too open, too quiet." "It's not quiet," Evelyn corrected. She tilted her head, listening. The hum of diesel engines, the grind of shifting gears. Not far away, a convoy was moving. The enemy hadn't abandoned the yard. They were using it. Ramirez cursed under his breath. "We slipped the noose just to walk into another one." Evelyn steadied him with a look. "Not if we use it." They crept forward, weaving between cars, boots crunching on gravel. Evelyn kept her rifle ready, every nerve stretched. A spotlight swept across the far end of the yard, its beam slicing the dark. They pressed flat against the metal as the light passed, the steel groaning under its weight. Hale muttered, "We can't fight them all." "Who said anything about fighting?" Evelyn's eyes scanned the machinery. Tracks splitting, levers half buried in weeds, a tanker car oozing fuel from a rusted seam. She traced the layout in her mind, fitting possibilities together like gears. "We can shift the yard itself." "What do you mean?" Ramirez asked. Evelyn pointed. "That switch line still works. If we throw it, the next car will derail into the junction. Block the main route, slow them down, give us space to move." Hale shook his head. "And if it explodes? Then we get a bigger distraction." She crouched, tracing the path of escape. A maintenance tunnel on the far side of the yard, low, narrow, but marked by a half-collapsed vent. If they could reach it during the chaos, they might slip past unseen. "We move when the engines start," she said firmly. "When the cars roll, they'll be focused on the tracks. That's when we cut through." The engines growled louder, gears grinding as the convoy prepared to shift. Evelyn braced, heart steady. Timing was everything now. She signaled Ramirez. "When I say, pull the lever. Hale, cover him. I'll run point." They moved like ghosts, crawling along the steel until they reached the junction. Ramirez crouched at the lever, sweat streaking through the grime on his face. Evelyn's eyes stayed locked on the looming headlights of the approaching train. "Wait! Wait!" The cars groaned into motion. Evelyn's hand cut the air. "Now!" Ramirez heaved the lever down. Metal screamed as the switch shifted. The oncoming freight car lurched, wheels grinding against steel. Sparks erupted in a shower of fire. With a deafening crash, the car jumped the track, slamming sideways into the junction. The sound rolled across the yard like thunder. Engines screeched to a halt. Soldiers shouted. Lights flared in chaos. Smoke and sparks billowed into the air, drowning the yard in confusion. "Move!" Evelyn barked. They sprinted across the gravel, weaving through the disoriented silhouettes. Bullets cracked, wild and blind, but the smoke shielded them. Evelyn pushed forward, leading them toward the far vent. Her lungs burned, her legs numb, but the path was opening. They slid behind a tanker car, ducking as gunfire rattled past. Ramirez clutched the shock case tight against his chest. Hale fired a burst to keep heads down. Evelyn spotted the half-collapsed vent just beyond a stack of crates. "There!" she shouted. They dashed, bullets snapping overhead. Evelyn reached the vent first, dropping to her knees. She shoved aside rusted grating, the iron groaning in protest. A narrow crawl space yawned below. "In, now!" she ordered. Ramirez dove first, dragging the case with him. Hale followed. Evelyn covered their retreat, firing into the smoke until her rifle clicked empty. She slammed a fresh mag home, then slid in after them, pulling the grate closed just as flashlights swept over the crates. Darkness embraced them again, the chaos muffled above. Evelyn exhaled, sweat stinging her eyes. They weren't safe, not yet. but they had carved another path. The crawlspace twisted beneath the rail yard, narrow and suffocating. Evelyn pushed forward, her palms scraping rust and stone, every breath tasting of dust and iron. Behind her, Hale dragged himself along, Ramirez grunting as he pulled the shock case through the dark. Above, muffled shouts rattled the air. The enemy had discovered the wreck, their lights sweeping across the ruined cars. But the chaos bought precious minutes. Minutes Evelyn was determined to turn into survival. The tunnel sloped downward, echoing with the drip of unseen water. Evelyn's flashlight cut a thin ribbon through the dark, revealing rusted pipes and graffiti long forgotten. She paused at each junction, reading the faded stencils. IND 5, RLY 7, Sect 12. She pieced them together like a map only she could see. Hale panted, frustration in his voice. "Stone, we're running blind!" Evelyn glanced back, eyes steady even in the dim light. "Not blind, different eyes." Ramirez hissed as the case banged against a wall. "What if this leads nowhere?" "Then nowhere is where we'll make our stand," Evelyn said, crawling onward. The tunnel bent sharply, opening into a larger chamber where storm drains converged. Moonlight spilled through a grate high above, thin but real. Evelyn's heart kicked, a way out, but voices echoed, faint at first, then louder, enemy scouts in the tunnels. They weren't the only ones who'd thought to search below. Evelyn motioned for silence. She scanned the chamber. 3 exits, none guaranteed. One led deeper, one back toward the yard and one upward toward the grate. The scouts' lights flickered at the far edge. Time collapsed into seconds. Evelyn made the call. She crouched beneath the grate, lacing her fingers. "Hale, boost Ramirez. Get that case up." Hale obeyed, heaving Ramirez upward. Ramirez braced, shoved the case through the narrow bars. It scraped, then clanged onto the street above. He pulled himself after, grunting with effort. The scouts entered the chamber, rifles raised. Evelyn fired first, her shots cracking like lightning in the dark. Hale added his own, the chamber flashing with fire. "Go!" Evelyn shouted. Hale scrambled up, gripping the bars, pulling with desperate strength. The grate screeched.